All right, welcome in, everyone. We're diving into a pretty unsettling case today. Khalil Wheeler Weaver.
Yeah, this one's pretty disturbing.
We're working with excerpts from a Wikipedia article here, and it's a case that, well, really makes you think. Our goal today is to try and understand Wheeler Weaver's crimes, take a look at his background, and figure out how he was eventually caught.
It's a story that kind of like really challenges those preconceived notions about who commits these kinds of crimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, late 2016, New Jersey, Wheeler Weaver is convicted of murdering 3 women.
And attempting to murder a fourth.
Right, and he did it all through strangulation. It's chilling, to say the least. And it gets worse, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, along with the murders, he was also hit with charges for desecrating human remains, aggravated sexual assault, aggravated arson, even kidnapping.
Wow. It paints a pretty horrifying picture.
It does. He wasn't just taking lives. It seems like he really wanted to inflict pain.
So the victims, we're talking about Robin West, Sarah Butler, Joanne Brown, their lives were cut way too short.
And tragically, that's not even the full extent of it.
Right, because in 2022, there was another charge.
Yeah, the murder of a 15-year-old girl, Moa Doumbia. Her remains were found back in 2019, but they weren't identified for over 2 years.
Imagine the agony for her family, not knowing what happened for so long. It's just heartbreaking.
Truly is.
This case really brings home the fact that behind the headlines, behind the statistics, these are real people, real lives lost. It's devastating. But how did he even find these women in the first place?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. He was using the social networking site Tagged.
Tagged. I haven't heard of that one in a while.
Right. He used a bunch of different usernames, too, like Liliot Rock and Pimp Killer Ghost. I mean, what do you even make of those?
They're definitely creepy. It's like he was trying to create this, like, persona, or maybe even taunt the authorities. What do you think?
I mean, it could be both, right? Maybe he wanted to project a certain image online, or maybe it was all about, intimidation, some kind of psychological game.
Yeah, it's hard to say. But one thing that is clear is his choice of victims. He was targeting sex workers.
Yeah, and the prosecution's argument was that he chose them specifically because he thought they wouldn't be missed as much. It's a chilling reminder of how vulnerable some groups in our society are.
Absolutely. It's a stark reminder that we need to do more to protect those who are most at risk. But even with all his attempts to stay under the radar, Wheeler Weaver left a trail. And that trail led straight to his phone.
Oh, his phone. That became a key piece of evidence. He may have worn gloves, used condoms, but he couldn't hide his digital footprint.
Right. The geolocation data placed her at the meeting points with the victims, and even where their bodies were found.
It's like having a roadmap of his movements,
Yeah.
and then you have his search history.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Things like homemade poison to kill humans. Talk about incriminating.
That just screams premeditation. It's like something out of a true crime novel.
It definitely suggests he wasn't acting on impulse. This was planned, which, raises more questions about his motive, his state of mind.
Absolutely. To think that someone could plan these horrific acts in such a calculated way is almost impossible to comprehend. But there's another piece of this story that's really powerful.
The victim's sister.
Exactly.
Now, she was incredible.
She created a fake profile on Tag to try and lure Wheeler Weaver into a meeting, then contacted the police. It was a huge risk, but in the end, it was a major factor in catching him.
Absolutely. It was a brave move, and it ultimately helped bring him to justice.
Talk about strength and resilience, even in the face of such a horrific tragedy. It's inspiring. But let's switch gears a bit and talk about Wheeler Weaver himself. He grew up in a pretty well-off neighborhood. And get this, his stepfather was a detective, and his uncle was a retired police officer.
Whoa. Talk about irony. Surrounded by law enforcement, and he ends up committing these heinous crimes. It really makes you question everything you think you know about people.
Exactly. It proves that evil can really manifest anywhere, regardless of your background, your family. But let's dig a little deeper into his past. High school, Wheeler Weaver wasn't exactly Mr. Popular.
Yeah, more of a loner, really. Didn't have many friends, wasn't involved in any clubs or anything.
And there's this quote from a former classmate describing his style as nerdy,
Yeah.
always tucked in shirts, khakis. Said it kind of screamed, good home, good family.
It's like he was living a double life. On the surface, totally average, maybe even harmless, but underneath.
Yeah, something much darker going on.
Makes you wonder what was going on in his head, right? What kind of thoughts, what feelings he was hiding. It's a scary reminder that you never truly know what's going on inside someone else's mind.
Very true. And here's another thing that adds to the complexity. At the time, Wheeler Weaver was working as a security guard, and based on his phone, it seems he wanted to be a police officer.
A police officer? Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Pretty mind-blowing, right?
That's that's really unsettling. What was he thinking? Was he drawn to that power, that authority that comes with the badge? Or was it something, more sinister?
It's hard to say for sure, but it certainly adds another layer of intrigue to an already baffling case. So what are your initial thoughts? What jumps out at you so far?
I mean, for me, it's that contrast, like seemingly normal upbringing and then these awful, depraved crimes. And the fact that he wanted to be a cop, it's chilling. Makes you realize the duality of human nature. We're all capable of good and evil.
Yeah, no doubt. And the role of technology in all of this is fascinating, too. It was both his tool and his downfall. It's a double-edged sword, that's for sure.
Definitely. It played a role on both sides of the equation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've learned about Wheeler Weaver's crimes, how technology was both a tool and a trap for him, and that jarring difference between his seemingly normal background and the darkness that was lurking beneath the surface. But there's still more to unravel.
It's a story that just keeps twisting and turning, You peel back one layer and there's another one underneath.
Exactly. And now we got to talk about, the legal stuff, the trial. So 2019, Wheeler Weaver's in court.
And the prosecution, they did their homework. I mean, they had a mountain of evidence.
Right. All that geolocation data we talked about, the incriminating searches.
Yeah.
It all came into play.
Big time. Plus, you had the testimony from the woman who survived the impact.
Yeah, she was so brave to come forward. Her testimony, it was just chilling.
It really gave everyone a glimpse into the terror and the brutality that he inflicted.
Must have been so hard for her to relive that experience. But she was crucial in getting that conviction.
Oh, absolutely. She made sure he'd be held accountable. And the jury, they saw it too. Guilty on all charges.
Wow. 2019, he gets 160 years.
No parole for 140 of those. Basically, he's never getting out.
Yeah, it's a harsh sentence, but I mean, the crimes.
Yeah, it reflects the severity of what he did. The judge, the jury, they recognized how dangerous he was.
But here's the thing. Even with all that evidence, the sentence, Wheeler Weaver still says he's innocent, claims he was framed.
I mean, it's a classic defense, especially in cases like this. But with the amount of evidence they had, it's hard to believe.
It is. It shows that even when justice is served, there can still be those unanswered questions, those conflicting stories. So let's take a step back. We've got this seemingly ordinary guy, right? Comes from a seemingly stable family. But then, for reasons we still don't fully understand, he commits these horrible crimes, uses technology to do it, and ultimately gets caught because of it. It's just confusing.
It's messed up. It really makes you think about, human nature, and the
Yeah.
vulnerability of those who are already marginalized, overlooked. And then you have all these questions popping up.
Yeah, could anything have been done to stop this from happening? Were there signs, maybe little things that were missed? And what about the dangers of the internet, of social media? This case really throws those into sharp relief.
It does. These are the questions that I think will be debated for years by law enforcement, by psychologists, everyone. It's a case that demands a deeper understanding of what leads to violence, and how we can protect those who are most at risk.
And you know what else strikes me? Those usernames he used. We kind of brushed over them earlier, but maybe those were clues.
To his mindset?
Yeah, maybe. If we knew what to look for, it makes you wonder, were there other subtle signs we just didn't pick up on?
It's possible. It definitely shows the need for more awareness. We need to understand the red flags, even the subtle ones, when it comes to predatory behavior, both online and in person.
It's not just about recognizing them, though, right? It's about feeling like you can actually do something. Speak up, report it.
Exactly. We got to create a culture where people are vigilant, looking out for each other, trying to stop these tragedies before they happen.
And what about those systemic issues that make certain groups more vulnerable? Wheeler Weaver targeted sex workers because he thought they'd be easier to disappear.
It's true. We can't ignore that. We have to fight those biases that make certain people targets.
It's about making sure everyone feels safe, everyone feels supported, no matter who they are, what they do.
It's about creating a society where everyone's valued, protected, and understanding that preventing violence takes a lot of different approaches.
It's complicated.
It is. But we can't look away.
We can't. This case is a stark reminder of how technology can be used for good and for bad. Wheeler Weaver used social media to find his victims, took advantage of that anonymity, how easy it is to connect with people online.
But then all that digital stuff he left behind, the data, the searches, That's what brought him down.
A powerful example of how technology can be a force for good and a weapon.
We got to be smart, though. We need to understand both the benefits and the dangers of technology, and we got to figure out ways to minimize those risks while still, using it to make our lives better.
We need to teach our kids about online safety, about being responsible on social media, protecting their privacy.
And we got to hold those tech companies accountable. They need to create platforms that are safe for everyone.
It's a balancing act for sure. Trying to embrace the potential of technology without, ignoring the risks.
Yeah, it's something we're always going to have to keep working on, especially as technology keeps changing.
This case, man, it's given us a lot to think about. The crimes, they're horrific, but the impact, it goes way beyond the victims, their families.
It goes deep. It makes us look at our society, our own nature, and the challenges we face in this digital world. Head on.
So as we head into the last part of our deep dive, I want to shift gears a bit. What can we learn from this? What are the big takeaways that we can apply to our own lives, our own communities? It's like this whole case that just shines a light on like so many big issues we're dealing with.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got like the dark side of human behavior, technology, the systems that, kind of let these predators get away with it.
And one thing that keeps coming back to me are those little details, like those usernames, remember? We talked about red flags, but how do we like actually get better at spotting those subtle warnings?
That's the million-dollar question. I think a lot of it comes down to education. We got to talk about online safety, healthy relationships, the signs of, predatory behavior, and not just once, but over and over in schools, at home, everywhere.
It's about giving young people the tools to trust their gut. Like if something feels weird, it probably is.
Totally. We got to make it okay for them to speak up, to ask for help if they see something that's not right.
And this isn't just about kids, right? I mean, Wheeler Weaver targeted sex workers because he thought they were disposable.
Yeah.
How do we fight those deep-seated biases that make certain groups more vulnerable?
It's huge. It's about tackling the stigma, the discrimination that surrounds these communities. We got to create a society where everyone feels safe and supported no matter who they are, what they do.
So it sounds like we need a whole new way of looking at violence, a new way of dealing with it.
Yeah, for sure. It's not enough to just react after something bad happens. We got to be proactive, figure out the root causes of this stuff, Invest in education, social services, mental health, community programs.
We need a culture of prevention, a culture where everyone's working together to make things safer, more fair.
Exactly. And everyone has to be on board, individuals, communities, law enforcement, the people making the laws, everyone.
Man, this case has been a tough one, but it's also been eye-opening. We've had to face some hard truths about ourselves, about like what people are capable of in this digital age. But even with all the darkness, there's still some hope.
There is. You see it in the woman who survived and the victim's sister who wouldn't give up and the cops who, worked so hard to bring this guy down. It reminds you that even when something horrible happens, we can still choose to fight for something better.
And that fight, it starts with being aware, being educated, and committing to creating a world where everyone feels safe and valued. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave everyone with a few questions to think about. What can you do in your own life to promote safety and awareness? How can you help build a more just, a more equitable society? And how can we use technology for good, while still being aware of the dangers?
Those are big questions, but they're important ones. The answers might not be easy, but it all starts with asking those questions, being willing to talk, to listen, and to act.
This deep dive, it's been heavy, but it needed to happen. Thanks for joining us as we explored the case of Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Remember, the more we know, the better equipped we are to make a difference. And by understanding these issues, by talking about them, we can start building a safer, a more just world for everyone.
Absolutely. Stay curious, stay informed, and, stay involved. Until next time.